going forward, and I asked this just because of your general knowledge of the game, but how will coaches balance the portal versus recruiting freshmen? Because obviously any freshman, and I don't care how good they are, generally have an acclimation process, even the best of the best.
Sure.
Whereas the guys that are a transfer, maybe he's already played his freshman year, they've already gone through that. It would seem like, man, it would be awfully difficult to pass up on the portal versus a freshman. Although the freshmen, there are guys like Braylon Mullins and Trent Sisley who are, from the state, who have so many the ties that people want to see. So it's a difficult balance, and I don't know how you find that edge.
Well, and so it's going to continue to evolve every year. I think that we're in the midst of 3 years of watching this thing change and get a little bit different every year. But I think the top players of the country, I don't even want to throw out a number because I don't know if it's 25 or 50 or whatever it is, but I mean the top players in high school in the country are going to get recruited. They're going to get drafted. They're going to get recruited and get to go somewhere.
Drafted. It's basically a draft.
Pretty close to the same thing. But they're going to get to go somewhere of their choosing for the most part. But beyond that, the guys who in this new era of NIL, the transfer portal, the real players that get hurt are, I'll say like lower than 50 or maybe lower than 100 in high school in a rating system, because those are the guys who are definitely going to get passed over for a portal guy. And definitely is not that's probably too strong, but there's going to be some instances where that's not the case. But coaches now not just have to balance whether a guy is going to be able to play at your level. Now the coaches have to almost guess how he's going to transition immediately, because you need results pretty much right away, because not because of your job security necessarily, but more because other teams are going to improve so quickly, so fast every year. And, the Big Ten was down last year. Who knows how the portal helps some of those teams that were kind of in the bottom tier jump way back up. I mean, Nebraska was good. Penn State was good. Those teams that maybe Northwestern, those teams that maybe aren't annually great teams had good seasons. And so, how you got to almost make sure that you keep up with those teams. And in doing so, you got to balance bringing in freshman recruits along with you almost got to evaluate them on a second level and say, okay, is a portal guy who I think can help me now a better option than a freshman kid I know I'm going to get for 2, 3, 4 seasons? And so that it becomes just an added measure of what they do with these kids, because they're still going to recruit the high school kids, just not as deep as they used to recruit them. I mean, it used to be, a kid could be ranked 300. I mean, how many IU players, Victor Oladipo, OG Anunoby, Juwan Morgan, those players were not highly recruited and became extremely successful, great players. And those are the number ratings of players that are going to get hurt. Like those below 100, below 150, below 200, they're probably going to have to go to, much smaller schools and prove themselves. And then they'll become that portal guy down the road. So the system that's going to kind of screw them to start out with is the same system that's going to help them move to a bigger, better school down the road. And so it's hard to knock the system too badly, but it definitely hurts the high school recruits.
No one, since Bob Knight, no one has done a better job of that in the Big Ten than Matt Painter. But I also see that he's the last to switch out of that. And I think that he's going to have to start becoming more of a portal guy in essence. But there's maybe not. Maybe he's able to continue getting the guys that he wants that will stay. Because that's the thing is getting everybody can get the guys they want. It's keeping them. It's not having to recruit them year after year. He's been able to get away with that, but it's been the early onset of of all of this, and they had Zach Edey, so there's not a lot of reason for people to leave during that period. Now we've already seen them lose Kanan Catchings over, new age stuff that I'll
Sure.
call it.
Sure.
But I think that this is the last year. There's no way a team can bring in 6 freshmen, although now it's 5, but no way someone can bring in 6 freshmen going forward, I don't think, unless it's a Fab 5 type of situation.
Well, but here's one way to look at that. If you take for they've got this system and the kind of the culture. I'll use the buzzword is thrown around a lot now, but them and UConn, they have a culture of winning for one, but they have a culture of doing it with guys that are kind of their guys, that are UConn guys or Purdue guys or whatever. And so when you already have that and you're successful, it's much easier to continue on with that process. I do think Purdue and UConn and teams like that have an opportunity to, continue to develop their players, have them come in. The hard part's going to be selling a kid on saying, hey, come to Purdue and, you're going to probably sit for a year. I mean, I think that's probably the Kanan Catchings situation is, he could go somewhere and play immediately or he could go to Purdue and possibly have to sit or, work his way into the lineup, which might be a lot more difficult scenario. And so I think Purdue, it's sustainable for them to continue doing it the way that they're doing it. But they've not, I mean, you think about it, their last 2 seasons have been extremely successful, and they've had a portal guy that started on their team both years. So it's not like they don't use the portal. They've just been very selective. They use it much less than other teams, but the one guy they bring in every year is a very important piece because he tends to play and start. And so,
as a matter of fact, Lance Jones just signed a deal with the Indiana Pacers, I believe. A 10-day, one of those 10-day deals, but that's a big deal. You got a shot. It gives you a shot. So that's all that matters.
And here's what's big about that. Okay. So hey, he seemed like a great kid. His story when his father passing away, all of that. It's a great story. He's a great kid. We're even Indiana fans, like you're rooting for him. You're rooting for him as a person. But the likelihood of him making the Pacers is pretty small. Like he would have to really turn some heads when he goes to their summer league and all that. But the important part of the summer league is when you get invited to play at a summer league, now your value going overseas afterwards just skyrocketed because now you technically are from the NBA. So when a team from France or Italy or wherever, advertises you coming over, like they've got a, guy from the NBA. And that's what the summer league does for you a bunch.
Yeah, Philip points out you've got to recruit high school kids to develop relationships to help when recruiting them in the portal later, probably, which is a good point.
Philip, that you don't even know how much you hit the nail on the head there. Like that is so, so true because one, kids and parents, especially moms, don't forget if there's a bad recruiting situation or if you're just completely looked over or not given any attention whatsoever, and in a lot of cases, not just any attention, but enough attention and the right attention. And so, Philip is right. You're definitely correct in saying that is a factor in, hey, you better make yourself look pretty good in the recruiting process because when it gets down the road a little bit, and that player goes to a lower conference and has a great year and then comes out of it, if they're all of a sudden being recruited right now, like I know for a fact that's a factor in a certain player that was from Bloomington that went off to another school in another state and then now was a more sought after player this season. And Indiana wasn't really in the running because they kind of ignored him being from Bloomington in the first place. And so, yes, great point, Philip, because that is for sure a factor.
Eric Gordon, man, Father Time has nothing on him. He is now going to be going into his 17th NBA season. He signs a new contract with what are you going to Philly? I think. Yeah, 76ers for the next year. His deal is expected to be the veterans minimum, which is estimated to be around 3.3 million. But he turned down, I think, a deal that was more than that. So I'm kind of not understanding how that worked out. Maybe it's just because for a better team.
Yeah, I'm sure at this point, like, when you're in your 17th season, like, he's made a lot of money. The money is a factor. I'm not saying that. But when you've made that amount of money and you've played this long in your career, like, you want to win. Like, this is an Al Horford situation, kind of completing your career. You are much more analyzing a team's ability to win the division and have a chance to win an NBA Finals. That factors a lot more into it than it did in maybe your second contract or something much earlier on in your career. His money, his financial situation is, I'm just going to speak for him here and don't even know him, but I'm just going to say it's probably pretty solid. And so the money is less of a factor, and winning, I'm sure, is a much bigger deal. Al Horford is the prime example of that for this coming season. I doubt he would have even cared what his salary was as long as he had a chance to win a championship, and it paid off big time for him.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.